everyone, welcome to another episode of S&BP Pulse, and permit me to say Happy New Year because this will be the very first podcast of the year. I'm excited to be here, and as usual, I'm your girl, Ikeoluwa Potesi, Product Marketing Manager for Standards and Best Practice. And today I have a very important guest with me. Like, I literally had to run after this man to get him here. So make sure you listen. Take your pen and paper and note down everything he says, because trust me, it's gold. And so without further ado, let me introduce our guest for today. He's no other than Mr. Orlando Olumide Odejide, PhD, so he's a doctor. He is the Managing Partner, Audit Advisory, Assurance and Assessment Service, A4S Limited. Orlando is a management consultant, program director, and trainer with over 22 years experience. Remember, I said this is gold. Yeah. In the field of management consulting, computing, information technology. He has excellent technical background and has successfully delivered programs and projects ranging from organizational change, enterprise architecture, information security, cyber security, IT service management, IT assurance, business advisory, and system integration projects. And this has happened within various industries: banking, finance, management, manufacturing, and everything you can think of when it comes to business. So once again, let's welcome Mr. Orlando.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir. Can I call you? Can I refer to you as Orlando?
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. How was your holiday, sir?
Very well. I'm not sure I got much of a holiday, but yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's a brand new year. We're all very enthusiastic. Our spirits are up, and hopefully it'll be much better year than last year.
Yes,
in
hopefully.
all ramifications.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Well, sir, it's an honor to have you here. It's a great privilege to sit with you and, have this session with you. You're somebody I admire a lot.
Thank you.
Yes. So
thank you very much.
It's an honor
Thank
to
you for your kind words. When you were reading my profile, I was wondering who you were talking about. But hey, I'm here.
I'm talking about this great man. Okay, so I know the people are already waiting. They want to hear everything you have to say. And today's topic is on the blueprint, navigating excellence in business and life, with a major focus on strategies for building resilient businesses in uncertain times.
Oh.
I mean, we are really in uncertain times because in the last 5 years, the amount of startups that had to close down, even after receiving funding, is alarming. The Africa startup ecosystem is a mess. I mean, investors are not even willing to fund anymore because, the amount of bad debts they would have to incur just because they are funding businesses in Africa is alarming. And it's not good for our generation, considering our population is going to double in the next 20 to 25 years. So these are truly uncertain times. So we would need your insights, okay?
All right, good.
Okay,
It's my pleasure to be here once again.
Thank you. So we'll start with the very first question. We'll
Yes.
dive right into it. So what's the single most important mindset shift a business leader can make or have to thrive in uncertain times?
Okay. Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. Rather complex also. This thing that people talk about, they talk about VUCA. They said everything is volatile.
Mm-hmm.
They say everything is uncertain as it is. They say everything is complex and everything has a huge degree of ambiguity. And that's what we have to live with. I remember last year, we were trying to change Naira into dollars, and we looked at how much we changed it to pay one of our partners for accreditation. And 1 year before, we did it with exactly half the amount of money. And that means at some point in time, we did it at 800 Naira, 365 days. We did it at 800 Naira to $1. And 365 days after, we did it at 1,600 to $1 in 365 days. I don't see how you're going to project that in an Excel document. I don't see how you're going to be able to see that. But that's where we are. That's what we have to live with. So anybody who says that I'm in business, in reality, first and foremost, you need to have a clear strategy. And I don't mean strategy like, a 200-page document or something very complex, but it's got to really be clear to you what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and you've got to be very risk aware. So people talk about being smart, right? And now people even talk about being smarter. And smart will mean they say that you should be very specific with regards to what you're trying to do. They say that you should be very measurable with regards to what you're trying to do. They say that the things you're projecting, and you made you made mention of a lot of startups that have closed. It's not just startups, right? I mean, our office is off Allen Avenue, and we would always, every time we walk past, we see a new store, a new shop, a new business. We can almost say that, oh, you know what, I'm sure they'll probably be closed in the next 4 or 5 years. It's the same thing. I was at the mall over the weekend, and you would just see, like, brand all a lot of shops where there was a gym shop where we buy a lot of gym clothes and things like that. They've closed down. There was another store where we buy a lot of accessories. They've closed it down. Somebody else is trying to take up the place where those organizations are. And it was on a Sunday, and the entire mall was literally very quiet. I mean, there was a lot of parking spaces. We went into some of the stores, and there was nobody in those stores. So you can almost tell you're paying very expensive rent. What's the possible probability that you will be in business 1 year, 2 years down the line? So to avoid that is that thing that we're talking about, smarter, right? You have to be very specific in terms of what you're trying to achieve. What you're trying to achieve has got to be measurable. It's end of the month next week, and everybody's going to pay salary. So we're going to have to look at it to say, what have we really achieved, especially when it comes to sales targets, because you can't do without sales. I think the challenge with a lot of startups is that they're very much into the product. Well, we've got a great idea, we've been able to productize that idea, but nobody's really saying, how are we going to be able to sell this, and how are we going to be profitable from selling it? And of course, most investors are not necessarily, especially in startups, they're not maybe initially overly worried about are you making a profit? They said, so, we'll roll out the product, make sure you have a lot of people that are using it. At some point in time, they worry about revenue, but they don't really think about profit for a very long time. But the thing is, I hardly will see African investors that will have the kind of pockets that you say that they're willing to fund you for 10 years and you won't make a profit. That's not very common around here. And if you really look at the projection of a lot of startups, they won't turn a profit in 10 years. Yes, because they will make revenue. Because sometimes they're in very expensive offices. If everybody's got these beautiful MacBooks and really nice offices that have been nicely furnished, the possibility that you're getting, because all those monies, you've got to make them back. People don't realize that. You've got to make them back. And there's a huge difference between revenue and profit. Profit typically is that you've actually paid off all your costs. That means you paid all your staff salaries, you paid for your rent, you've even given you've given some returns back to your investors. Then you can really say that you've been able to turn a profit. And I don't think a lot of people really think about what their net profit is going to be at the end of the day. So it's a combination of these things. But if I go back again, I said you've got to be very specific around what it is you're trying to do. You've got to be very measurable. Your plans have got to be achievable, because it's nice for you to write nice things. I can write that I'm going to develop a six-pack, but is that achievable for me? If I want to develop a six-pack, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time in the gym, and I don't have all that time to spend. So the things you're saying you're going to do, are they really achievable as it is? They've got to be realistic about it. There's got to be a sense of time. And like the new ER that they've added to it to make it smarter, they now say you need to evaluate everything after a while and kind of need to readjust all your goals. I think these are critical things that organizations need to be aware of. It's not going to go away. You need to have a strategy, but your strategy has got to be executable. Otherwise, you would have a nice thing that you've pitched to the investors, you've used your business model canvas, everything sounds nice on PowerPoint. Somebody says that everybody makes a profit on a spreadsheet. If you put it in there, oh, so we're going to turn the profit in the next 24 months. Yeah, but when you really look at it, you don't even control the market. There's so many macroeconomic factors that are not within your control. So it's not a straightforward thing to run a business. I just told you about the inflation. I just told you about the currency, the exchange. You've got to be able to thrive irrespective of a lot of those things. So business owners, startup entities, they've got to really understand that there's a lot to do apart from just pitching to investors and working on wearing shorts and wearing working on your laptop. You have to exactly. This is beyond just being a tech bro.
Yes.
It's a business. It's a business. You're working out of somewhere. You've got employees. You have to pay for transportation. I mean, even electricity. Some organizations they can't even pay for their electricity supply. I went to an office recently. We were looking to expand our offices, so we went to look at something. It was this year. It was about 2 weeks ago, and one of the floors in the building that we went to had about 50 Mac desktops, and the place was completely locked. Why? They couldn't pay their rent after about 2 years or 3 years that they were there. They couldn't pay their rent. The landlord locked all their equipment, locked everything in, and then the organization had to leave. And the reason why they've not been able to come back to pick those things, and they said the place has been locked for about 6 or 7 months, is that they don't even have the money to be able to pay the landlord so that they can actually take their equipment. So this is beyond just yeah, all the tech bro things. At the end of the day,
Beyond
it's a business. Right? At the end of the day, it's a business. It's got to make a profit. The investors are never going to keep funding you. They talk about angel investors. I'm not sure. I think the investors in Africa, I'm just not sure they're angels. Yeah, pretty
we
much.
just have to call them real investors, not angel investors.
Right, pretty much.
Okay, thank you very, very, very much, sir.
Yes.
So to reiterate your point a bit, the mindset has to be you have to set smarter goals.
Absolutely.
You have to be very realistic, and you have to evaluate now and like every now and then, because it's not just about breaking even. Like he said, you have to make a profit, pay back all your debts, pay your salaries, be able to, afford your costs, and then you're in business. Thank you very much, sir. So, to our next question, like I said earlier, you've been in business and you've been managing and consulting and advising businesses for over 20 years. And I'm sure that in over your 20 years, there's something that has, stood the test of time in terms of strategy. It has rung true. What's that thing? That one thing that you have seen businesses come back from? Like maybe, like you said earlier in your analogy, having 100% increase in costs. That's a shock a business is not ready for.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So what's that one strategy that helps businesses, or that has helped you, or businesses that you've managed or advised over time to be able to bounce back?
I mean, we talk about resilience all the time, right? So a business owner's got to really look at it and not be overly optimistic, right? You should be optimistic on one hand, but you need to have what I'll say, you kind of need to balance being optimistic, because you can just be blindly optimistic. In Nigeria of today, dollar is still about $1. I've done business. I was in business when $1 was to $100. Clearly,
Whoa.
I was running this business. I was running all sorts of businesses. When dollar was, I'm certain I was running business when it was 1 to 70. I'm 100% certain. I mean, because I started running business in 2003, so I'm certain that when it was 1 to 70, when it was 1 to 80, I was fully in the business. We had an office, we had employees, we had clients that we were serving. And I'm not that old, in my lifetime, it has gone from, let's even say 100, and look at where we are. What am I talking about? I was in business when it was 1 to 50. So what are we talking about? We're talking about $8,000, right? Like 600, 700, pretty much got to 800 at some point in time, right? So as a business, you really have to, you can't just be blindly optimistic. You and I can't just say that this year we know that it's going to be at $1,000. Even the central bank cannot promise you that. So you've got to really look at the reality of the country you're in, the environment you're in. There's a business of ours that we want to close down. it's a testing business where people come to test and take exams. So you can come and take Microsoft exams, take your PMI exams, take AWS exams, and things like that. And we're running it, but now I've looked at it. I sat down with the accountant over the Christmas, and that's why I said I'm not sure I had a lot of holidays around that period because I had to look at all my books in the various businesses. And I said to him, the average, and proud to now, people will spend a lot of their monies to do professional exams, young people during their national service when they just start their first job. And that's because, as at that time, the people were probably paid 30,000 naira during 20 or 30,000 naira during NYSC, and those exams were about 10,000 bucks, 12,000,
so it was quite affordable.
So they will save their money over 3 months or 4 months or something, and then they can write one exam. So if they have national service for 12 months, they will say that I'm going to write 2 of these exams or 3 of this, and they'll put their money from their national service monies, they'll put it together, and they'll be able to write those 2 or 3 exams. People who do CCNA, Oracle, and those kinds of exams. But the cost of those exams right now, it's ridiculous. The average Microsoft exam is probably almost 200,000 naira. That means even working people cannot afford to write the exam that is supposedly meant to be the cheapest of the exams, which is meant to be Microsoft exam. So, from getting 100 people to come to write exams in a month, the thing is dropped down. It's the Microsoft still remains Microsoft, Oracle still remains Oracle, but it's dropped all the way to maybe 10 people. So 90 people, 90% of the people cannot put the money together to write those exams any longer, right? So that portion of our business, even the physical space that the business occupies, and the amount of money that we pay for electricity and power and all that, the business cannot even pay. So now we're looking at it. The reality is that the person who wants to come to do the exam, they still need to do those exams. They're still in the same country. They still need those skill sets and those validation and those certifications, but they cannot afford it any longer. So you can't be blindly optimistic is my point. You also need to have alternatives. So as I said, I'm about to close down one business. If I don't have an alternative business, then what do I do? Do I put up my hands? Do I go to do I go to look for a job? I think I'm near retirement age. I'm not sure anybody will hire me any longer, and I'm not sure that I want to try setting up a restaurant. I don't even know anything about that. So you have to have an alternative, and that's what happens to some organizations, right? They've got one product or one service or one market that they're focused on, and then if something goes bust there, they don't know what the alternative is. They don't have an alternative product. They never have an alternative service. They don't even have an alternative market that they can serve. In my lifetime, that has helped me significantly. We've got a thriving business in Ghana. I've been in that meeting earlier today. That's a different market from the Nigerian market. It's the same services that we offer, but we offer them in a different market. And because we have a different market, we're in a good place, so to speak. So sometimes when we're experiencing some kind of downtime or downturn in this market, it doesn't necessarily mean we're also experiencing the same in a different market. So we're able to balance these things out. So for me, I'll just stick to those 2 things. Of course, there's so many other things, but one, you can't be blindly optimistic. Right? You've got to be a realist. You've got to look at the reality and then plan around that reality. Because a lot of people, when I'm speaking to them, they bring their business plan, they bring their business idea. They just have this idea that, if I set up something on Instagram and, or I have a website, or because I'm on LinkedIn and I do posts on LinkedIn, LinkedIn posts don't automatically translate into revenue or into sales. People can be looking at you on Instagram every day. You're looking at it. Wow, I'm getting a lot of views, 500 views, 1,000 views, but nobody's sending the money in. So you can't be blindly optimistic. It's number one. Number 2, you've got to have an alternative. It can be an alternative product, it can be an alternative service, or it can be an alternative market that you serve.
Fantastic. Diversify, guys. Spread your money. Go into new markets. Don't just stay where you are. Move. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much, sir. Okay, so this leads us to our next question. How can small businesses with limited resources, we've already established that the market is volatile, resources are very limited and scarce, but businesses will still spring up. And we hope that a bulk of those businesses would survive. That's our hope.
Hopefully.
Yes, please. So, how can these small businesses with limited resources build resilience? You said it, resilience, stay competitive, and in a situation whereby this person is just starting, they're not blindly optimistic, and they don't have enough resources to diversify,
Right.
which is very important. Like you've mentioned that already, but there are still people within this cadre of not having enough, just starting, and maybe eventually they'll be able to diversify. But right now, how do we help these seedlings grow to become plants?
I like that, seedlings.
Yes.
Right. Okay. For one, right? For one, it's about you have to be innovative. I mean, everybody started somewhere, and starts from being a seed. The thing I will say is you have to be innovative now. Let's now really look at what does innovation mean, because every time we talk about innovation, people will say or think that innovation is really around the product. You're trying to innovate around your product, but that's just innovation in one from one perspective. You can innovate across many areas. So, for example, a a startup, somebody has a great idea. I want to make batteries, or I want to make whatever that thing is, and I want to go out. You have to start with what you have. And once again, it comes down to innovation. I've started a business in my garage before because I couldn't afford to. In fact, the very first business I started from the BQ of my parents' house.
Okay.
And even after I'd done a lot of work and done a lot of business, I had to go back to a garage at some point in time. Made a lot of mistakes in business. We had all sorts of regulatory and tax issues. We had a lot of bad debt with our clients, a lot of receivables challenges. So we pretty much had to close down a business that were making about $1 billion already. And I had to start all over again. And in starting again, I had to start from the garage of my own house now, because I mean, the first one was 20 years before, or maybe 15 years before then. Now, I had to now start from the garage of my own house. I had to innovate. The garage is lying. I was looking for an office with the amount of money that I could afford, and they showed me different places. And my money couldn't get what I wanted, and the other places that were showing to me was just completely inappropriate. And I looked, in fact, what happened was I went to one of those places, and I said, the garage in my house is better than what it is that you're showing me, and you're telling me to pay X amount of money for it. And I just went back to the house and I just opened my garage. There was the garage. I had a bike of bicycles there. I even had a motorbike in there, broken down motorbike. We had broken down ACs, all sorts of things inside of the garage. And I said, you know what? We're going to clear out this garage and we're just going to turn this place into an office. And I spent about half of the money I was going to use to take an office, and the garage that was already part of my house. I just turned it into a great training room, into an office. Great from my from my perspective.
Yeah,
So
if
my
you do say
point,
so.
right? If I do say so, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, you have to innovate, right? You start a business, you've got to look at it. How can I get a product out? You can't. People come to me and say, I want to start a manufacturing company. I'm like, but you don't have the money for a manufacturing company. Why do you want to start something that, why are you thinking about starting something that you can't even afford to start and you don't even have an investor? Why don't you start to say that, you know what, I'm going to sell a service? That's probably the easiest thing. Because if you want to sell iPhones, that means you probably need to stock iPhones, right? So maybe that's the end point. I want to be like a big store that has a lot of iPhones inside of it. I will start to say that, you know, I'm going to go look for the guy who has iPhones, right? He's got inventory of iPhones, and I'm going to say, can I find buyers and bring the buyers to you, and I get the commission? I really want to have my own iPhone store, but as of today, I can't afford a store. I can't even afford to stock iPhones. So what I'm going to do is to go to market. I'm going to tell everybody, if you want the best iPhones, used ones, new ones, come to me. And I'm going to go take the iPhones from there, shoot a lot of videos, put it out on Instagram, these different places. I'm going to create a business card, flyers. I'm going to hand over the flyers to everybody on the street so that, you know, I'm your iPhone blog, right? Remember that I can't afford to even, I might not even have an iPhone that I use myself, right? And I can afford to stock iPhones, right? But I've got legs, I've got my mouth, I probably have enough money to print a business card and to print flyers. I'm going to start from exactly where I am and with what I have. I'm going to go build a relationship with the guy who has an iPhone. I'm going to go meet the other guy. I'm going to tell everybody, come to me. After a while, I will get one person. I promise you, this is how it always works. Who's going to say, you know what? I'm going to buy this iPhone from you. I'm going to either tell the guy that, dude, see, you have to send me the money, or I'm going to bring it to my distributor so that you can come to him. And my distributor is going to say that Orlando is our best partner when it comes to this. And we're going to sell you that iPhone in that store. And you will see that on display, the iPhone is probably 500K. And I'm selling to you at 480. And because they've given it to me at 460, whatever that thing is, I'm going to make sure that I use my mouth, I use my legs, I use my brain. It's that type of innovation that you need to have, because you can't, if I wanted to hold a podcast like this, right? Maybe I don't have a studio. Maybe I don't have the right lights. Maybe I don't have the right camera. There's somebody in this world that has got a phone, and there's some physical space I can sit. I might even just stand beside somebody's building and I'm going to still shoot. The similitude of this podcast. Maybe I'm going to tell the person I want to shoot with that, dude, we're going to do the standing. We're going to do it by the wall, somebody's house, and I've gotten that guy to borrow his iPhone so that we can shoot it. Maybe it's not going to look as professional as this. Maybe it's not going to look as sophisticated as this. But one thing I will do is that I will shoot that podcast, and that podcast will get the attention of some people, and I'll be able to move to the next thing, and I'll be able to move to the next thing, and I'll be able to build it like that. You have to be innovative, and you have to work with whatever it is that you have, and you will always have something. In as much as you've got life, you can open your mouth, you can use your legs, you can use your hands, you will always have something. Somebody around you is going to borrow your computer to do something, to do editing of something. Somebody is going to borrow you. Somebody might even borrow you a nice shirt or a nice jacket so that when you want to shoot your podcast, you look very professional. You might not even own that jacket, but you will always have something. And you have to start with what you have, start where you are. See, it's that innovation that I'm talking about. Thinking about the multiple ways by which you can still achieve your objective. People are stuck in one thing. So you want to do a podcast, you say, oh, we can't do it. Why? We don't have a nice studio. We don't have a nice moderator. We don't have nice lights. We don't have nice cameras. And they cancel podcasts because they just don't think they have enough. But I tell you, you would always have something that you can start with.
Thank you very much, sir. Because this question you just answered now brought to light what a lot of small business owners always complain about. They always look at what they do not have, forgoing the whole list of things they could possibly get and they do have. So start where you are, and when you are thinking about your business, do not bring step 4 to 1. Please rearrange your priorities right. And this also means be realistic in your goal setting and all of that. Thank you very much,
I couldn't
sir.
have said it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so now we've helped the seedlings. They are now plants. Okay, so that would lead us to our next question. How can businesses strike the right balance between preparing for risk, being risk aware and being risk prepared, and staying innovative in this current present time that's very unpredictable and volatile?
I'll use one word, and the word here will be just you need to be very proactive. And risk in itself is about uncertainty. I mean, I do risk management as a service, as a training service, as a consulting service. The idea behind risk. So last year, every company that we worked with, we told them that by the time is July or August, your two key things you need to start working on. It's your strategy for the new year and your projected risks, because risk is ahead. Risk is different from when you're talking about issues. Issues are things that they're with you now. They've materialized, so you've got to deal with them now. The idea behind risk is that you're proactive. You're thinking about, what about if this thing gets to 2,000 naira to $8? How do I still run my business? What about if my landlord says I need to get out of this place? How do I still run my business? And that's a situation that I'm that I'm experiencing. End of the year, when the landlord in one of our offices just said, you know what, I want to use my house, you guys need to get out of this place. So, but luckily for us, we had seen it, kind of already saw his body language and a couple of that, you know what, most likely this guy is going to tell us that we should leave. And that's the idea. You're thinking ahead of two things, right? And that's the other thing people miss when it comes to risk. You're thinking of two things. One, what is the threat? Because that's the actual definition of risk according to ISO 31000. Number one, what is the threat? The negative thing that can happen, right? Maybe the landlord might tell you to get out of his house. Maybe the car you thought you were going to use, the engine gets broken and now you can't use the car any longer. Maybe one employee of yours that is meant to be this great employee that has three-quarters of the business running one thing or the other is going to say, I'm relocating, or I'm going to get another job, or whatever that thing is, right? The things that are threatening you or threatening your organization from achieving its objectives. And that's very important. You can't be a business owner that you're not always thinking, what can go wrong? But the idea is not just to think about what can go wrong. You also have to say, how do I manage this? Right? So that it doesn't materialize. So maybe that employee, you should have maybe hired another one. Maybe you need to start thinking that, you know, if this person leaves, I need to pick up the skills. Or I'm going to have an arrangement with the person that, dude, even if you're going to leave, we'll then turn this into something, some kind of contract, whatever that thing is, right? You're thinking about what can go wrong ahead of time and how to manage it, so that when it does go wrong, you're not going to be lying on the floor. That is number one, the threats. The other thing people miss is the opportunities. And I'm talking about big organizations, banks, telcos, very much into what about if this goes wrong, but they're not really thinking about what the opportunity is. And there's always an opportunity. We're in the year 2025. A couple of things have changed in the marketplace: the demographics, the needs of people, even the kinds of videos people are doing on Instagram, on social media. Many things have changed. Maybe 2 years ago, everything was about Mr. Macaroni. Now it's no longer really about Mr. Macaroni. So things have changed. So there's always an opportunity. So as an organization, you're thinking about what can stop you from achieving your objectives. Hopefully your objectives are smart or smarter, but you're also thinking about the opportunities. You're really looking at the market. You're saying this tax reforms. What exactly is the opportunity there? You're saying this thing that is of Trump. You're saying Trump that is coming in, and Trump is saying drill, baby, drill, that we're going to go back into oil and gas. Is there an opportunity there? You're looking at the newspaper. You're reading the newspaper. You're looking at television. You're listening, and you're like, what is the opportunity there? Maybe export is what you and I need to be thinking about now. I don't know. I mean, it works differently for different businesses. At some point in time, everybody had to have nice hair like you. But at some point in time, everybody wanted to do kinky, natural. So if your entire business was just like, I'm going to sell hair to everybody, and then you see three out of five, all of them are saying that, you know what, I'm just going to. You should have seen that. You, the business owner, should have said, you know what? It seems that the trend that I'm seeing is the people just want to wear natural hair. So maybe they're still going to buy 1 or 2 weeks, but they're not going to want to wear a wig every day. So maybe something else is happening that I need to take advantage of. So you have to think about what is threatening you, but you also have to think about What are the opportunities that you probably didn't see or didn't notice before now? What is the trend, and how can you take advantage of that particular trend to the profit of your own organization? Those are the two things that I would say. It's about being proactive, but your proactiveness is about you thinking about what can go wrong, the threats, and addressing it ahead of time. Also thinking about the opportunity and addressing it, so that if tomorrow, I mean, it's different lines of business. Maybe at some point in time, everybody's just going to want to do podcasts, and you just find out that everybody's doing podcasts in their homes, in their bathrooms, and all
Yeah.
that. And maybe you'll be the biggest podcaster producer in the whole country, but you have to see that trend coming. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
won't be able to take advantage of it.
True, true, true. So yeah, this reminds me. I remember when COVID hit, a lot of businesses were like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" and all. And I think it was just around that time TikTok came into existence, and Zoom had been in existence before TikTok. I mean, and even Skype, but I think they just went down and thought, "Oh, there's no space for our business and all." But then COVID hit, and then Zoom picked up, and then TikTok became a thing. And I mean, it's one of the biggest source of livelihood for people in America today. And in as much as businesses lamented, I had a lot of climate change experts were so happy. They talked about the numerous benefits COVID had done to our ozone layer and our climate as a whole. So yeah, like you say, whenever there is a setback, there's an opportunity.
Always.
Please be patient enough to see beyond the problem, because these too shall pass. Okay? And so that brings us to our last question. I do not want you to go, but then you have to go. You have to go. So this brings us to our last question, and this is very practical. This is something that they can actually apply. So I want your response to be in the line of what they can actually apply to their day-to-day business lives. Okay. So this question says, what practical steps can leaders, business leaders, take today to future-proof their businesses and empower their teams for long-term success? It's very important. You
Okay.
have done that, so how can we replicate it?
Once again, thank you very much. You just mentioned something around COVID, right? And in like, it went bad for a lot of businesses. Some businesses completely have closed down. COVID just, until today, they haven't been back up. COVID hit and that was the end. Like, they folded up their business. And I know a lot of organizations did not survive COVID. But I also know a lot of organizations where COVID was the best thing that had happened to them. Post COVID, they have got clients who we do something called business continuity for, ISO 22301. And the ones that already had done that prior to COVID, they probably lost, let's say, maybe 5 to 10% of the revenue. If that was it, they were going to come out of it, because they're taking those standards into keen consideration, or a standard like that, which is business continuity, ISO 22301, into keen consideration. COVID did not hit them that bad. But there's some organizations, they didn't even know anything about that. There was a bank they're working with in one African country. It was COVID that made them even hear that there's actually something called business continuity and a standard, and I mean a bank, right? Everything they've done with regards to business continuity, they did post COVID, like the bank, and the bank is never a multi-country bank. So that was a big challenge. So I will say, right, one of the key things that will help any organization is you need to put processes in place, and that's critical. There's no going around that, right? We I'm a big proponent of ISO standards. And I always tell people that while things like information security, ISO 27001, and those kinds of standards are very popular, the most important standard every organization, not some, every organization needs to put in place is ISO 9001. Because that standard, we call it the quality management system. But in reality, it looks at the quality of all your internal processes. There's no future without that. You will never get there. I'm planning to retire and I'm looking at all our internal processes. I'm the chief quality officer of my own organization, because if I'm ever going to retire and the company is still going to be there for another 20, 30 years, it will not be about me. It will be about the processes we've set up in the organization. And that spans everything from, in fact, I like to say everything is a process. Everything is a process. Strategy is a process. Human resources, all the way from recruitment to talent management to performance appraisal, it's a process. Everything in finance, it's a process. All the way from accounts payables to your receivables to how you do your reporting. Everything in procurement is a process. Innovation is a process. Marketing is a process. Advertising is a process. Sales is a process. The first big company that I created and ran very big and then closed down, it went wrong because we had our compliance, tax management, and our financial processes, especially our receivables management. Those processes were broken. And because those two processes were broken, a 1 billionaire company was closed down. The companies that did not survive COVID is because they did not have processes with regards to resilience and business continuity. Everything in an organization is a process. Setting up a great board and ensuring that you have great corporate governance, it's a process. Ensuring that the leadership of the organization, that they know what it is that they're doing, that they're being measured appropriately, it is a process. Even ensuring that your offices are clean and secure, it's a process. See, if I'll leave you with one thing, right, just one, it will be that everything is a process. And any organization that is going to be there, even into the future for a very long time, needs to really pay attention to all its internal processes, not leaving any of them out. Because people say that some are critical, some are not critical. Yeah, what isn't critical? Is it no? Is people say the cleaning of the restrooms, is that critical? Absolutely. So everything is a process, and I think organizations should adopt standards like ISO 9001. And if you do it really, not mandated by the government or regulatory agency, you do it because you really want to do it. I think your organization will definitely survive into the future.
And there you have it, guys. There you have it. Not adding to that, get yourself a working process. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so on that note, we have come to the end of SMBP Pulse of this episode. We'll have more coming soon your way. And once again, thank you very much, sir.
It's my pleasure.
It was a complete delight to have you here.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed every bit of your question answering process, and it kind of just put things into perspective for me. I'm a young person that hopes to, have a business someday, and I'm already learning. So thank you very much.
I'm sure you do great things.
Thank you, sir. Please, can you take a picture? I want to take pictures with very great people. Like, please. Thank you so much, sir.
It's my pleasure,
Yes.
completely.
Yes. And so on that note, as I said earlier, we have come to the end of today's podcast. We are Standards and Best Practice. We are an ISO certification and training company. We help you with everything management system. Like he mentioned, 9001, 45001, 22301, and all the management systems that would help your business survive, grow, and thrive. And so you can reach us on, you can visit our website, www.smbp.net, to visit and see and know more. And for inquiry, write to us at info@smbp.net. Till I see you again next time, bye for now.
Standards and Best Practice, your partner in professional development.